You can turn off the camera. And there goes the recording. All right. Um, Lisa, can you put up the sponsors? The next
Yeah.
slide, I think it had the sponsors. There we go. I really want to start by thanking our conservation partners and co-sponsors for these webinars. Avalonia Land Conservancy, Connecticut Department of Energy and Environmental Protection, Connecticut Land Conservation Council, Eastern Connecticut Conservation District, Eastern Connecticut Forest Landowners Association and Wolf Den Land Trust, Joshua's Trust, Naturally Natchog, New England Forestry Foundation, Opakam Land Trust, Wyndham Land Trust, and Yale Forests. You know, we like to say that the Last Green Valley National Heritage Corridor is green by day and dark by night. We are a national heritage corridor with a rich history, but we're surprisingly rural. We're about 84% forest and farm. We're the last swath of dark night sky in the coastal sprawl between Boston and Washington, D.C. And all of these co-sponsoring land trusts and conservation partners are the main reason that we are still the last Green Valley. Together, they're stewarding thousands of acres of open space, and they continue to acquire and manage and protect important parcels every single year. They are keeping the green in the last Green Valley. But obviously, there's a lot more work to be done, and that's where you as landowners come in. More than 60% of the woodlands in Connecticut and Massachusetts are privately owned. And it puts a lot of responsibility on landowners like you for stewardship and conservation. So if you love your land, this webinar series is for you. Our speakers tonight all have stories to share about their families' journeys towards stewardship and conservation. I'm going to introduce our speakers. Thank you, Lisa, for putting that up. We have Chris Kiefner and Lynn Stoddard. They moved to Mansfield in 1993, where they raised a son and a daughter. And over the last 25 years, through a combination of creativity, risk-taking, and simple luck, and fueled by a strong vision, they've reassembled adjacent forest parcels and lots totaling over 250 acres. They strive to create diverse wildlife habitat, sustain forest health, promote carbon sequestration and climate resilience, support sustainable farming, educate others, and enjoy the land's recreational and aesthetic values. Their stewardship practices include multiple patch cuts, removal of invasives, educational forest tours, and forest-friendly businesses. They run the Adventure Park at Stores, and it helps them preserve the forest while connecting the community with the beauty and wonders of nature. For Lynn and Chris, it's a journey of continual education and fulfillment. Our other landowners tonight are Laura and Scott Moorhead. They bought a 14.8 acre parcel on a back lot in East Putnam in 2014. They designed and built a home and moved in with their two dogs the next spring. The house is set back in the woods, and adjacent to their lot was a 73 acre parcel forested with lots of large pines, a pond, and a stream that they enjoyed access to. Over the years, they discussed purchasing the adjacent parcel, and in 2020, they did so with the express purpose of preserving it. The following year, with the help of a grant program that was coordinated by the Last Green Valley, they secured funds from the Natural Resources Conservation Service, that's NRCS, to complete a forest management plan that had an Audubon bird habitat assessment. The plan included recommendations for forest land improvement, forest stand improvement, invasive vegetation control, early successional habitat development, trail management, and wildlife structures. And with the help of another NRCS grant, they were able to implement some of the recommendations, including getting rid of some invasive species, creating early successional habitat, and they planted American chestnut seedlings, including some hybrids, with the hopes that they could establish a healthy stand. They have already seen a vast improvement in the health of the forest and a much more diverse bird species populations. Laura and Scott have held educational site walks on their property, and just 2 months ago, in December, they donated a 72-acre parcel to the Wyndham Land Trust with an agreement that they would continue as stewards of the property. Our other speaker tonight, and this is the person who's going to kick it off, this is Lisa Hayden. She is the Director of Outreach and Engagement with the New England Forestry Foundation. Her work focuses on woodland owner education and building partnerships to advance conservation and sustainable forestry as part of natural climate solutions. She joined the New England Forestry Foundation in 2014 and leads the landowner outreach initiatives in the 38-town Mascon Woods initiative in Northeast Connecticut and South Central Mass. She connects landowners with resources to make long-term plans for their land. Since 2021, she has served as the administrative agent to the Woodlands Partnership of Northwest Massachusetts with a mission of forest conservation and nature-based economic development in a 21-town region. She's a former reporter with the Norwich Bulletin and other newspapers, and she previously worked with the Nature Conservancy's climate policy and communications teams. Lisa holds a BA in journalism from UConn and an MA in urban and environmental policy and planning from Tufts University. She's also going to be sharing her family's conservation story about their property in Putnam. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Lisa.
Okay, great. Thank you. You can hear me okay? Okay. Well, thank you so much, Lois, and everyone, all the partners for co-hosting this series. We've been talking about it for a while, and I'm really excited to be here with you tonight. And I congratulate you all for making the time to join and start thinking about this process, which can be a bit daunting, but it's a great one to start on the road towards. So as mentioned, I work at New England Forestry Foundation, where I've been since 2014. And if you're not familiar with NEF, as we call it for short, we are a regional land trust. We focus on working woodlands conservation and education about sustainable forestry. And we've been around for a while, founded in 1944. You can see on the map there on the right is sort of where our community forests are located, spread across the New England region. Those are fee lands or community forests that we sustainably manage with 10-year management plans, and money from those timber harvests gets reinvested back into the conservation mission. And then we also work with private landowners who want to conserve their land but still live on it by using conservation easements. So that's a little background about NEF. But let's just dive in here. And we have this quote from Walt Disney, the way to get started is to quit talking and begin doing. And we can always use an inspirational quote, right, to get going. But I also like to sometimes take a step back before diving in and do some thinking and planning and reading. And that can often help us to set a strategy and actually be more effective when we start the doing. So we're going to talk about some of those things tonight. And before we invite our other guest landowners to share more about their experiences with their land, I'm going to walk through some of the most common interest areas for private or family woodland owners. And some of these themes are drawn from a series of booklets that NEF and other partners helped produce in Massachusetts with the Department of Conservation and Recreation. And it's called Caring for Your Woods. And it's a series of 6 of them. I have some of them here, if you could see. But setting goals is a great one. There's another one, a starting point, which is even just the very, very initial thoughts if you're just a new owner or inherited land and you haven't really thought much about it or had much time to deal with it. But these are a great place to begin this process. And the interest areas I'm going to go over are sort of descriptions of stewardship goals that are shared by many woodland owners. And these pamphlets are just, a great resource amongst many others that we'll share some links to at the end. But again, identifying what you care most about can help you focus on what to do first and figure out who you need to talk to get good information, and perhaps also access different funding opportunities that might be available. And I also want to just share that, these interest areas aren't cut and dried. They're not set in stone or anything. You may decide to pursue more than one of these goals, and many of them are compatible. Or if your land is large enough, there might be a goal you pursue in one area and you're doing something else in another part of the property. So just to keep that in mind. So the first group is the outdoor recreationists. And So these folks really enjoy getting outside and spending time on their land. Perhaps doing family activities, recreation, building trails, or you can see on the right there a little footbridge over a stream. Maybe there's special views that you enjoy if you're up on a high elevation area, or you like to hunt or fish. Maybe you host friends or neighbors to get outside and enjoy your land. And so this is our first sort of category. The next group are the wildlife stewards. And so these folks really enjoy watching wildlife, whether they're, looking out their window, seeing who's visiting, leaving tracks on the snow like we have these days, looking at birds through their binoculars, or maybe they've set up trail cameras like we see in the picture here, what are capturing, deer, fox, or bobcats who are kind of moving through the property at night sometimes. They're interested in supporting native plant communities or tree species that can help to provide food for wildlife. Um, and so a wildlife biologist might be the kind of expert person you want to meet with or have come visit your land to see if there are any, rare habitat types or certain wildlife that you could maybe create better conditions for by taking certain actions on your land. The third group is what we are just calling nature's ally. And these people are interested in our woods' contributions to larger natural systems and ecosystem services, as we call them, the things that nature provides to people. And you are probably interested in water quality, valuing the way that our forests both pull in carbon dioxide or sequester it and store carbon in their trunks and leaves and branches and in the soil. And you may be interested in this group in thinking about how we can help our land be more resilient to changes that we're experiencing very rapidly now with warming temperatures and a lot of extreme weather, pests and diseases and that kind of thing that are becoming more common that landowners have to deal with. And then our fourth group is the working woodlands owners. And for these folks, whether they're planning for long-term timber production by working with a forester, maybe practicing agroforestry, or harvesting firewood, to burn in your own fireplace to keep warm in the winter. Perhaps even renting out campsites to weekend visitors. But thinking about ways that your land could provide revenue and income to help your budget. And, there are opportunities to enjoy financial benefits from your woods and maybe even contribute to the local economy. And you're going to hear a little bit more about some of those ideas later. Okay, so those are our groupings. And again, on that theme, thinking about finances, the trees that we have growing on our land could be a potential source of income too. We think about the financial benefits of that. There can also be ecological benefits for certain wildlife species by cutting some trees, creating more light more space for sunlight to come down and reach the forest floor, which can help young seedlings and saplings to take root and grow. So thinking about the composition of the future forest. And in our second session, we're going to be thinking a little bit more about forest stewardship activities and having some forester guests to speak at that one. But other practices can, again, help promote forest health and resilience for the long term. And again, timber could be an asset for you as part of your estate planning process, and perhaps for some folks even give them options that would help them to not have to sell or be forced to sell for development if that's not what they want to do. Okay. I wanted to just touch briefly, and this could be a whole session on its own, but the current use programs that we have in both Connecticut and Massachusetts, I think are really important for landowners to be aware of. I'm sure many of you are already enrolled, but if you're not, these programs recognize the public benefits of keeping open space in our region, forests, farms, and open space lands that are not being planned for development, and they give folks, those owners, a break on their property taxes. And it can be a fairly significant reduction, of up to 75% in certain cases. So, um, again, you want to take a look and do some good reading about these programs because there are, very quite detailed rules of who's eligible. But in Connecticut, for the PA 490 program, you would apply with your town assessor between September 1st and October 31st. And in Massachusetts, it's a Chapter 61 program, and that application is due October 1st. And again, we can, see if there's other questions about that and get back to you with more details if you would like to learn more. There are also publications for Chapter 61 and PA 490, so there's good information out there. A forester actually can also, be a good resource to learn more on those programs. Okay, so, we talked a lot about on-the-ground stewardship in interest areas, but of course, one of the other reasons we're here tonight is conservation on your list of priorities. And any of those, kind of goal topics that I was going through earlier are compatible with conservation. You can have actively managed lands that are conserved, as NEF does, rare habitat areas that is like a priority for groups like the Nature Conservancy. Other conservation groups focus on recreation or open space areas. So, as I said, conservation is compatible with many of your interest areas. And just to take a step back and think about the big landscape picture, wanted to share how, many of our land trusts and other conservation groups have been working together in a more concerted way in the recent decade or two. These maps are showing all the different regional conservation partnerships across New England. And actually, this first map is older. There's many more of them now, but there's so many overlapping, it's hard to actually show them on one map. But we have the MassCon partnership, the Sustainable Forest Partnership there, where the arrow is pointing, that we worked on doing some outreach on in recent years. And then the Last Green Valley and the Southern New England Heritage Forest up in the upper right there. And Lois and others did a great job. Bill Reed also working with landowners to bring funding in for NRCS practices to support bird habitat and also long-term conservation through some various funding programs. But the idea here is Harvard Forest did a big study saying, we have this great opportunity to keep a lot of our New England landscape in forest. Their goal, 30 million acres by 2060. And so we really want to be trying to scale up our conservation efforts by thinking about the big picture and making connections as much as we can between different land trusts and across town and state borders. And we know there's about 215,000 people, maybe that number's increasing, but folks who own 10 acres or more. And the decisions that these people make is going to be really important for the future of our forests and our whole landscape. So, if you love your land as it is, the question you might want to ask is who's going to own it after you? And we'll dig some more into that. But being proactive about the planning for your land and making sure that it's a part of your estate plan is really important. Again, there are maybe certain habitats that make your land more of interest for conservation from certain groups. And just wanted to mention an emerging option is working with Indigenous peoples or local tribes to support them in gaining access to lands for cultural use. And this is kind of a new area, but there are some sample easements out there working with Indigenous groups to support some of their goals as well. This is a quick list, and again, in our other series, later series events, we'll dig some more into this, but What makes a good conservation project? It could be many different things depending on your goals, what your land has to offer in terms of the conditions there, and what partners you might find to work with. Um, Again, wildlife movement corridors, scenic landscapes, rural character, all these things supporting watersheds or listed species are all really important. Okay, so now I should have said this earlier, but if you have a piece of paper or a pen, I invite you to jot down your own answers to some of these questions, which might be helpful to you later as you move through your planning process. And feel free to enter your answers in the chat if you're comfortable sharing, but you don't have to. It's just for you. So as you start thinking about this, one question is, how do you spend time on your land now? And I hope you get to. Not everyone does. I know people are busy with work and other things, um, but take a minute or so to just jot down your thoughts, or you're welcome to share in the chat. Looks like maybe people are talking in the room over there, which is good. Um, Okay. I'm not going to take too long because we'll have more time to chat later. But the next question is, do you have a favorite place on your property? And if so, where is it and why do you love it?
We did have one comment in the chat that said enjoy
Yeah.
hiking and wildlife observation. That's from Kathy Demers.
Oh, great. Thank you
Hiking,
for sharing.
snowshoeing, horseback riding. That's from Jeremy.
Wonderful. It's good time for snowshoeing right now.
Mm-hmm.
My dog needs some snowshoes, I think. Okay. All right. And then our last question here is, what do you want your land to look like in 5 years? And, thinking longer term, how about 30 years from now? Okay. Well, you all can keep thinking about those questions and jot down your answers. We're going to move on to speak with our landowner guests. And Lynn and Chris, thank you so much for joining us tonight. I was going to throw one of these questions to you, if or you can tell me which one you want to answer, maybe. But can you share a little bit about a special place on your land and why you like to spend time there?
Well, this picture is a good example. It's first picture of how do we spend time on the land. This is one of the ways in which we do it right here. Today we
Right.
spent probably 2 hours uh,
Oh,
out, and it was great. And we, as we did after the first big snowstorm. So this is one
nice.
way that we spend time out there. I also do collect firewood and we just do a lot of enjoying of the property. One of the things I enjoy, especially, and this is the right time of year to do it, is looking at the topography. For whatever reason, that's always drawn me. The way you can see the undulations of the land in the wintertime in the forest, much better than you can in the
Hmm.
summertime. You can't
Yeah.
see them at all. And it's really intriguing. Yeah, you can see it when people have cleared a field, but they've generally cleared fields in pretty flat areas, understandably, or relatively smooth. So it's just really interesting to think about, time and what's happened over, geologically.
Yeah.
Um, Len, you want to say anything?
Yeah, so I mean, I just like the land and the climate, the weather just provide opportunities that draw you in. So I love to go tracking. It's really fun in the winter when you can really see a lot more of who's spending time in the woods and where they're going and trying to figure out that and put the pieces together. We love skiing, hiking. I like birding. Yeah, there's just a lot of opportunities. We really love sharing the land with other people. doing forest tours and stuff like that. And we'll get into some of the more dramatic things that happen in the trees in a few minutes.
And you also asked about favorite place on the property, and there's some places I like maybe more than others, but favorite, not really. It's just I love a view, and so there are a couple of places where there's a better view than other places, and I just enjoy that. And I'm sure other people have the same idea where there's just a place where you can see whatever it is you can see, and it brings you pleasure or joy or peace or whatever it may be, inspiration. Um, and that's just something I like.
Right.
Favorite place? I mean, I like being
It's
on
more the
the just
experience.
being on the trails and just
Yeah.
being in the woods is um kind of the thing. And you asked about the how what it looked like in a while. We have done a series of patch cuts, which, as you say, that'll be come up more next time, various management practices, which we really only learned about by doing this very sort of thing. And I don't know who's here for the first time or for your fifth visit to a program like this, but Lynn and I, between the two of us, have been to at least 50 or 60, maybe up to 100 walks and
Mm,
weekends and
Coverts.
all kinds of things
right.
that are just interesting and worthwhile. And you meet different people. And in fact, Lisa, you somehow I think found me. I don't know how, but for when you had a forest management plan grant
Right. Yeah, a long while
to
ago.
yeah, that was a while ago.
Hmm.
And that was actually on a different piece of property than what we're showing here. Um, but anyhow, it's basically keeping your ears open and finding out. So as far as I'm thinking about that, how do you want it to look? Well, we sort of see the management moving around, doing what we can in different places. Just recently, I went to a conference on during the summer and or in the fall and learned about something called close to nature forestry, something I'd never heard of before. But that's something I'm now really intrigued with, and it's basically more of a European model
Hmm.
where
Okay.
the forest is more intensely used, but I'd never heard of it before, never knew about it before. And
Yeah.
so anyhow, that's I don't really know how it's going to look. We'll see as we move along.
Great. All right. Well, we have a couple other slides
Yeah.
showing photos of your land, so I'll let you both just share what you would like to about your experience becoming landowners and caring for it now and into the future.
Sure. Go ahead. You wanted to go to the next one?
Yeah, actually, why don't you go to the next slide and then
Okay.
we'll back
Yeah.
up. So, those are our grand twins, and our cousin, and that's the adventure park at Stores. And so, the story behind that is this land was not, we didn't inherit it through the family. We've bought it over time and pieced it back together, and none of this would have been possible without a lot of things, like the former landowner being willing to hold the mortgage and um, finding a way to generate some income to pay for the mortgage was a really important thing at the beginning. And so we wanted to do it in a way that met our values and didn't trash the land and preserved it. And through a long story, we basically came upon the idea of an aerial forest park, adventure park, where um, you're bringing people into nature, which is something that's important to us. And people are spending time in the trees. The course is built in a way that there are slats and platforms that expand over time, so it's minimal impact on the trees, and it's all human powered and gravity. So yeah, we're not using energy out there, and it's so we found some partners that do that and kind of carved out around 10 acres of the land that is dedicated to this use of the adventure park. And every ticket is helping preserve the rest of the forest and helping us with forest stewardship and whatnot. So that's not something that's necessarily going to work for everyone. It just was, but the point is, just kind of thinking creatively and talking to people about what are ways to generate income to preserve a forest. And this has just been a big part of our story that's been, yeah, really rewarding. And it's just so fun to see people in the trees who may have never, probably everyone here has climbed trees as kids, but a lot of people haven't. And this may be the first time they're actually up there. So it's fun.
Yeah,
Very cool.
really made a lot of this possible. What's the story? The whole story really starts with me as a kid, and exploring the woods near home. I grew up in the town of Fairfield, which is far different from what it was when I was there. And yet I loved it. And then, um, seeing houses get built and so forth was very painful to me, even as I enjoy architecture. Um, but this, we wanted to, my purpose in buying this was to try to preserve it. So it was important that we have a way of preserving it that didn't damage it, but it's also in the same way productive. So, and that's actually another interesting piece about, for me anyway, about kind of the values question that's often asked, sort of what are you trying to do? I forget how you put it on there. On the brochure you put on earlier. But a forester will often ask you, "What are your values?" And I didn't. What do you? I'm just trying to, save this forest. The guy wanted to sell it to a developer. I didn't like that. So, uh, what it has come to be is I want the land to be productive, and productive to me is many things. It's productive as a wood production for both lumber and firewood. It's productive as habitat, both for the general critters and also for hunting. And it's a pleasant and productive place for walking and enjoying it for us. And in addition to that, we've added to that the idea of, not the ideas, the reality, and realizing that it's a carbon sequestration opportunity. And it's also, improves water quality in the watershed by having intact and, well-managed forests. So anyhow, all those things became a piece of this. And so the whole thing is kind of, where do you like most in your forest? Well, kind of the whole thing. And then to go back, if you can go back a step,
Previous slide.
back the slide, if you're able to.
Yeah, sorry, I'm
This slide
having,
has a stone wall on it, and so,
yeah, I
um,
know.
and I
Why
think
is it
it's an
not letting me go
intriguing,
back?
but I'll just to sort of describe it. It looks to me like a snake, and I have
There we
my,
go.
there you go, on the right. It's unusual, and if you line yourself up with it, it actually does seem to wiggle. But all these things are probably, what is that bias called? Confirmation bias, where you see what you want to see. But it's just neat to look at it, to think about it, and so forth. And then on the left there is what used to be a beaver pond. This is taken from the road, um, and the town decided that was not what we wanted happening. They didn't want it happening anymore because it actually would flood the road and so on. So anyhow, but it makes for a very nice meadow, even if it is mostly Phragmites and increasingly so.
So, Lisa and Lois, feel free to guide us if you want us to jump into the like talking to our family part now or whatever, because I know.
We'll rotate.
Yeah, we're going to dig a bit more into that in a bit, but feel
Okay.
free to share anything you would like to, though, about your situation. So,
That's fine. And if there are questions, we can go back to them unless you want to say something.
No, I mean, we have a forest management, we've had multiple forest management plans and really learned a lot from landowner educational stuff like coverts and conferences. And so
Programs at Yale, programs at Great Mountain Forest.
there's
mhm.
so many resources to support forest landowners, and it's just a joy to learn from all these experts and have them walk through your land and point things out and whatnot. And like we mentioned, we've done some patch cuts to favor white oak regeneration, and it's phenomenal, the white oak regeneration that's
Okay.
happening in these patch cuts. The years go by and all of a sudden the trees are taller than us, and we're doing patch cuts in other parts to create more earlier successional habitat. So yeah, love to share things and learn from others.
Wonderful. Thank you both so much. Um, okay, so we're going to hear from our other guest speakers next. So Laura and Scott Moorhead. My kickoff question for you was, when did you first know you wanted to conserve your woods? And I guess I'm curious if you like talked about it together, or, how did that get going?
I think pretty much as soon as we moved here. I mean,
I think even before, because we bought our 14-acre lot to build the house, and it was like we were looking at this big piece next to us with a pond and a stream and said, "Ooh, I want to buy that someday." So
and we don't want anybody to build on it because
exactly.
it's so beautiful. And I know Scott quite often tells a story about before we moved here, we lived in downtown Central Village, which is a beautiful place, but it's very busy and a lot of traffic, a lot of noise. And he will tell how when we first came up the farm path into the woods here, he looked over and my smile just reached from ear to ear. And I just felt the peace that was here.
I said we found our lot.
That's right.
Nice.
We stopped looking.
Yeah.
Great. Okay, well, I can move forward here, and you're welcome to share whatever you would like to about your experiences with your beautiful property here. So,
Yeah, this the one on the left, Scott has built a great little observation deck that looks out over the pond, and it's got like a ladder steps that go up to it, and our corgi has learned how to climb them. So it's one of my favorite spots. That first picture you showed with the deer, I love to just take my camera. I'll say to Scott, I'm walking out in the woods, and about an hour or two later, I'll come back because I love to just sit and let nature happen. And the falls that you showed in that one, I was sitting there and this young deer just came walking through, and I snapped his photo. So not that long ago, I was down at the pond and just sitting on a dock that Scott has built, just letting nature happen. And the pond was just lightly frozen over, and I heard a crack, and an otter popped up and was walking along the ice and back down and out again, just kind of having a fun time. So I love that sort of discovery, and I love taking photos. I know I sent you some, but I have a lot of
Beautiful.
photos because it's so beautiful to me. It's changing all the time in the fall. It's the colors, it's the fog coming across the pond. It's the waterfalls on the right there when they get crazy noisy from a rainfall. We can hear it from the house, and it's way out there in the woods, but oh, we got a heavy rainfall. I can hear the falls.
Yeah.
So
I think they call that forest bathing when you just kind of sit there and.
yes.
I think my other favorite place is our early successional habitat area. Chris and Lynn did these patch cuts, and we went a little more aggressive. We actually cleared 7 acres, took up because this forest was just all 90, 100-foot tall white pines, shaded all the understory. There were very few oaks and maples, and they were in bad shape. So this one area we cleared out all the pines, a lot of the scrub brush, left a few oaks and maples, and we built, so it's called a slash wall around it to keep the deer out so they wouldn't browse. And in the 3 years since we did that, we have aspen trees, cherry trees, blackberries,
Elderberries.
all sorts of species we don't see anywhere else in the woods. They've just magically come up, and we have trees now that are 10 feet tall in 3 years. I mean, it's just amazing.
And the birds,
Oh.
it's amazing. I pull out my phone and the Merlin app, and we keep track of all the birds that we've heard. Audubon has a list. And every time we get a new one, we get to the house and we check it off. Oh, we heard that one today.
I think we're up to over 80 species we've identified so
Yeah.
far.
And the sound of them it's so beautiful. And you get so that you think, that's a different sound this morning. It's not just the sound of birds. That's a different one. We haven't heard that before.
Hmm,
So
cool.
yeah, that's our pond on the left, and
Beautiful.
discovery right there. Lady slipper, love to discover those. Lots of Jack in the pulpit. I love skunk cabbages.
And in the pond, we have beaver and a lot of turtles and
A lot of
frogs and
turtles.
a lot of ducks and geese and a lot of birds that come through using the pond. So that's always good just to sit there and see what's coming through.
Okay, beautiful. Yeah, this slash wall is um, relatively new practice, but they're cropping up around, and I think we'll have a chance to maybe talk more about it the next session too when we have some more forester speakers. But
We're
that's
proud that
exciting that you took that on.
Yeah.
we're proud that we're the first ones who did it in Connecticut on private land. And I credit Mark
Congratulations.
Tremblay, who was our forester from Chepachet, because he was involved in Rhode Island and doing some. And
Right.
he's
I've seen
doing
that one in Rhode
best.
Island. Yeah,
Yeah.
Yeah.
interesting.
I guess it was started at Cornell was the first one, and it's huge
Yeah.
there.
And I know Alan Woodward somewhere on this thing, and lives not too far from us, and he's been over a number of times and brought the Eastern Connect Forest Landowners Association people over, and NRCS has been over, and a number of groups to just see how it works. And
And as Chris and Lynn said, we love to share the land too.
yeah,
The other day I was walking through the snow, and our neighbors' kids had made a heart in the snow for us on the trail. It's,
Yeah.
you know, it's heartwarming, and it's fun to share.
Great. All right. Anything else you want to mention at this point, or we'll have a chance to answer questions from our attendees too
the
towards
only
the
other thing is
end.
I have started taking planting American chestnut trees.
Hmm.
I've got
She
some
mentioned.
natural ones, and I'm getting some hybrids this year to put in. So hopefully we can establish some chestnut trees. That's
Wow.
nice move. So
Wonderful. All right. Thank you so much for sharing. Okay, so now I'm going to tell a little bit about my family story too. Um, so yes, I grew up in East Putnam on a 50-acre former sheep and poultry farm. And here's some pictures. That's me in front of the old rambling barn there. And the photo on the right is my grandfather, John Joseph, who was an immigrant from Ireland. And he was came to America around 1910 and found, work at the farm and ended up marrying one of the farmer's three daughters. So that's my family story. And my grandmother's family had lived here for several generations. And of course, this is the ancestral and unceded lands of the Nipmuc people who were there long before my family. But my dad used to tell stories about how they would harvest trees from the woodlot across the road, which, as you can see behind the car there, that it was open at that point, and now it's all grown back up to forest. But they would, drag them down to the mill pond with a team of horses, and there was a sawmill there by the river. This is on the Mary Brown Brook that leads into the 5 Mile River. And the sawmill's not there anymore. It got flooded out during the 30s, I think, but there's the levees and kind of an old cellar hole that you can still see there. And then my dad at one point had sheep on the property, and he grew a big garden with sweet corn every summer and vegetables that would be too much to eat. So, we would share them with the church and everyone. But it was a wonderful place to grow up, and me and my siblings really had a great childhood, roaming the fields and the woods and skating in the winter and cutting Christmas trees and so forth. So we really shared a deep love for the land. Um, and my parents were wonderful people, but they did not do advanced planning regarding the future of the land. Um, so they had always said, the land's going to go to the five kids, and they had a will, but that was basically it. It was supposed to be divided equally. But, that of course means carving up 50 acres into 5 10-acre pieces. So it's would be, a really different landscape, the one that we had experienced growing up and really came to love. And so fast forward to 2012, and my mom had been in a nursing home for about 3 years, and my siblings and I weren't sure that, if we would have enough money to even have to worry about the land. The bills really are intense when you're in long-term care. And, would we be forced to sell it at some point? That didn't end up happening. My mom passed before that point. But then the decision was up to us, what do we do with the land? And we had to come up with an estate plan. The house and barn ended up getting sold, and we came up with a way for some siblings to inherit land and others to get money. And I'm really grateful for my sister and her partner who were able to donate one of the parcels and to buy and then donate to the Wyndham Land Trust about 30 acres. And so, it was not without some stress and disagreements along the way, but we were able to, reach an agreement that we could all live with. And we're all still speaking to each other today, which is a really good thing. We have a Zoom call like every month, so that's great. But one of the most gratifying things about my work is working with other landowners and helping them to figure out, that path forward. So, I thank you all for taking the time to join tonight and setting aside some time for gathering information to help you make good decisions. So I'm going to just share a couple more slides here on, that whole process. I think it's great to set aside time that you can devote to reading and researching different conservation options if that's the road you want to go down. This is a really good time of year. It's maybe tough to get outside right now. It's a good time for studying or thinking about your plans. Really think about and articulate your goals. What do you envision for the future of the property? Understanding the title to your land is important, whose name is on the deed. And, of course, that thing we are always reminded of, do you have a will? And it is important to have one. If you don't, the state and the probate courts will determine who inherits assets. So you do want to make sure that your estate planning includes land. And I understand, some people maybe inherit it after they've set up a will years ago, and somehow it's not included, which, that's just something to make sure you're taking into account when you add up your assets. Also, what is the title? If you have a will, you can pass on your land if you're the sole owner. But with joint tenancy, that means there's a surviving spouse inherits. And then the tenants in common, when there can be many owners in that form of ownership, they can only give away that proportion of their own share in a will. And just to mention UMass Extension, Paul Catanzaro, and who's a forester at UMass and has done a lot of work and research in this area of conservation-based estate planning. He has this great this booklet, Using a Will to Pass on Your Land, which is really helpful. And they suggest a legacy letter can be attached to your will. And it's a way for you as the current owner to, describe the history of the land, your relationship with it, and your hopes for it, and really set out your wishes clearly so that beneficiaries know where you're coming from, and it's written down in black and white. And it can be challenging, of course, to start these conversations. No one wants to think about, death and the world after you're no longer in it. So it's understandable why we have procrastination about these things. But starting early gives you more control over the outcome. And conservation, unfortunately, can really take a long time for deals to come about and you putting all the pieces together. So it is important to start as soon as possible. Talking with your children and other heirs, who's interested? Does somebody want to live on the property? Are they already actively helping to take care of it, to do management or, clear invasive weeds or that kind of thing? If it's a farm, are they involved? And then, you know, having some of those initial discussions about different scenarios that could play out. And it doesn't have to be all or nothing. It doesn't have to be the whole property that's conserved or, um, you know, there's different ways that and tools that we'll dig into again when we have our attorney speakers in a couple of weeks. Many different options for how conservation can happen, and you know, portions of the land could be split off for one or another use, and still have some significant conservation contribution. And a family meeting can be really helpful, but I would suggest not doing it, you know, when you're passing the turkey around at Thanksgiving, setting aside another date and time in a kind of a neutral place where everyone's comfortable to kind of start those conversations. Okay, and you know, we talked a lot about, whoops, sorry about that. Lost control there. There we go. We talked a lot about spending time on the land, and this can be really great for families to do together, engaging young people in appreciating nature. You know, we're all got our screens today, but maybe young people especially, and encouraging them to learn about wildlife and everything that nature provides for us is really important. And the American Forest Foundation, who we've partnered with in the past on different projects and their tree farm program, encourages owners to walk their land regularly. They suggest seasonally, which maybe you can't do every season, but it is a way, as Laura was saying, to observe the changes that are happening in nature and what bird species are migrating at different times and what plants you see and all the different you know, seasonal changes that are wonderful to experience. And you can make it a party with your family, you know, go together or plan a walk every fall or something that maybe gives you a chance to start those conversations. And then as I wrap up, I just wanted to share a couple quotes from some estate planning forums that we, or a focus group that we had done as part of one of those in the past. And these, I think, were from Stafford. But this one lady said, my goal is to keep the property open land, or at least get an easement so it won't be developed. Now, I haven't done very much except worry about that. And then another gentleman said, talking about his kids, we'd like them to take part in the joy that I get out of the land, but they're so busy and they don't really have time or the interest that it takes to keep the property up. So, you know, getting that understanding of how realistic is it for your family to take on the responsibility is another consideration. And, you know, maybe you need to be thinking about a land trust partner if conservation is really your desired goal. But taking these first steps can help to ease worry too and feel like you're taking action, which is really important. So if you have that piece of paper, you can add a few other things to it as we wrap up here. You know, if you've learned something tonight, what do you want to follow up on regarding your land, your property and its own characteristics and your specific situation? Are there folks you want to talk to, whether it be experts or land trust partners who might be joining us tonight, family members about your plans? And are there resources that you want to explore further? And we're going to get into questions, but just to share that we do have some links here that are a good place to get started also. Lois has created a page on the Last Green Valley website with conservation resources. And this whole series is also a kind of a companion to this, Your Family Land Legacy or Memory, which is another great publication. And so you can learn more by going there. And I think she's going to add to it as well through other resources that we compile in the next couple of events. And we have other links here about the current use programs and Mass Woods and that's setting goals pamphlet we talked about.
Yeah, we'll have all these resources on the Last Green Valley webpage. We also have links to all of the land trusts and other co-sponsors for this workshop. We will put all of the PowerPoint slides, a link to those up on the website, and we'll also put the recordings for all three of the webinars up on the website too. And we will be emailing all the participants afterwards with that link, so you don't have to copy it down tonight.
Right, thank you. So I think we can just open it up to questions now and maybe discussion. I don't know if folks have entered any questions into the chat because it's not real easy for me to see it, but
Yeah,
Carly,
sure.
yeah.
Hi, Lisa. This is Carly. So I did see Jeremy put something in asking the Moorheads how many acres they have for their property.
We had a total of 88. We've kept 15 with the house, and the 73 has been donated to the Wyndham Land Trust.
And we did have it resurveyed so that there was a little bit more land to go with the house than what was on the original plot. So it's a buffer.
Gotcha. Thank you. We also have a message from Valerie Clark saying that she really likes the legacy letter. Oh, we got a thumbs up from Jeremy. Thank you. There was also a little bit of discussion here about the possibility of those being Karens, so like indigenous relics, the stones that we're seeing. I saw Bill answered this. We are actually currently out of Markham Starr's book, or else I would have put it in the chat as well, but he has a fantastic book on ceremonial stonework. And we have noticed this at the Last Green Valley as being something of interest. So we've actually had a program last year and this year covering that. Do we have any other questions that want to enter the chat? I was going to show quickly where this is on our website for people to see the resources.
Well, I just like to make a couple
Mm.
comments. I also believe that it is probably an indigenous creation, but as I said, there's the confirmation bias. But I wanted to say another thing, in Valerie's mention of the legacy letter. That is a wonderful idea, as long as, to my mind, as long as it doesn't burden um, the next generation. And I say that with the knowledge and talking to many people that many landowners, that the land can have a value to you, to me, to Lynn, that it doesn't have for our kids, and a meaning for us that it doesn't have for them. And I think that the land, my standing thought, and has yet to be changed since it evolved, is that the land is much more valuable as land than it is as a financial asset. And that my kids don't, tell me how much they like my or your or anybody's IBM stock, and you don't go around saying, "Oh, hey, I've really, this is great stock here," or whatever other asset, financial asset you may have. And land is in one on the one hand, we're treating it the same as any other asset, and in reality is it's really very different. And so I just think it's terribly important to realize what's important to you isn't it's kind of like that beautiful China dish that has been passed down through the generations. There were some tablecloths that Lynn inherited, and oh my God, we used them. Can you believe it? We used them for paint, to cover up the floor, and it took a while to recover from that. But they were very useful on the floor, and we didn't have a table that was quite big enough to make full use of them. So anyhow, the land is just so much more valuable as land, and by preserving it and working toward preservation, I think we're all better off. We're lucky. Last thing I'll say for the moment, anyway, is we are lucky in that we kind of tried to have that conversation. I did anyway with my son, and he was like, "Dad, it's your land. What are you talking to me about it for?" So, that made me feel good as I repeat it, and that was probably 10 years ago. But I think that's also really important to remember that it is your land and you get to make what is hopefully the right choice. And, in my mind, the right choice bends toward conservation.
And I think Scott and I would completely agree with that, our relatives' children don't have the interest in land like we do.
Yeah, I mean, that said, um, our kids have both been part of the land story, and they've both been worked at the adventure park and been on forest tours with us, and we've showed them what we're doing to manage it. So they understand the value to us. It's not like this is our thing, this is your thing. And they appreciate that. So we're certainly sharing conversations and sharing our love of the land, and the grandkids spend time on there, and our kids. Our son hunts there. Yeah. But I think part of that is them realizing that it's also, yeah, it's kind of um, the importance it is for us to conserve it, and they appreciate that.
Yeah. Well, and just I think if you're thinking about conservation, again, it's just important to start the process early, as I was saying, and speak to different people, different land trusts, find out what might be a right fit for you. And you just don't want life circumstances to take, the choice away from you and you're forced to have to sell when you don't really want to. So that would just be my advice.
I have actually, I think Chris has a cool story to share. Although it's not about our family directly, it's about talking to our adjacent landowners that the forest is connected to
Hmm.
about their plans and talking about our values in conservation or our plans for the future with them, knowing that they're coming to a point of
Decision.
passing, it's about to be passed down because the owner is well in her 90s. So yeah, why don't you talk a little bit about that and how you've
Well, I've been talking to them for years, 20 years, and encouraging, but their story is a little bit like others. In fact, they inherited the land themselves, the older generation above us, and um, sold me part of it, and the other part of it, as Lynn reminds me, Chris, you can't buy all the land everywhere. Um, but no, in this case, it looks like they are on the cusp of making it happen.
and their grown kids live all over
And
the
yeah,
country and out of the country.
they have no investment in this territory. So anyhow, I what I did was I have actually donated just in the last at the end of last year, 2025, a 15-acre piece of land in fee totally, just gave it to Joshua's Trust as kind of a not to be well, whatever, however you take it, however you want. Um, Basically to show this family that I was very sincere about trying to make this happen, and I'm putting my money where my mouth is, and that this is an important thing to do,
Yeah.
to conserve land. That's there's nothing more basic than the land. That's where what we need to be living. So anyhow, that in turn, or in as a part of that, my gift has enabled. Well, it's a little bit of a long story, but Joshua's Trust was approached by an anonymous donor who wanted to name a name a preserve um, after someone, and had money but no land. Here, I put my hand up. I have land, no money. So
Yeah.
this was a great match. And so it actually leveraged the um, my gift to help to purchase, we hope, this other property that Lynn has mentioned. So is that the story you wanted to be
Yeah,
told?
yeah.
Okay.
I think
So,
it's
so
pretty.
it is a great sort of one thing helps another, and these things don't happen in time. In fact, I mentioned in that bio thing, a lot of hard work. It really has been a lot of luck and some mistakes along the way.
Mhm.
But we're still in a better place than we would have been had I not done anything.
Yeah. Well, and I was going to mention too that we are sort of at a place of a lot of intergenerational transfers, as a lot of folks that maybe inherited land or it's been, farms or other large properties have been in families for many generations. And we're getting to the point where folks are aging out, and there's going to be quite a lot of turnover potentially in subdivision of large lots. So it is an important time, for individuals to be doing this planning and for the landscape as a whole. But, these are important decisions that's going to affect, a lot of the future of our forests and our woods and habitats and all those things. So. Okay, any other questions that folks want to raise? We have the dates here of the upcoming programs. We just wanted to highlight two on the screen. Thursday, March 26th, also the same time, same channel, I guess. Focusing on steps you can take right now, saving on property taxes, so some more detail about the current use and other funding programs, working with a forester. And then on April 23rd, 6:30 to 8 also, on a Thursday, conservation estate planning. We all have some attorney speakers who can dig a bit more into different tools that are available and, tax benefits and if you decide to go down that path, what might be involved. And let's see. Sometimes my screen doesn't want to advance, but there's only one more slide with our emails on it there. But happy to answer any other questions, for me or Lois or the panelists, and we can share all the links and follow up. And do we have anybody else asking anything in the chat, Carly?
I don't see any other questions in the chat. There are a couple other comments. I was going to show on our website where to find the resources, but I just wanted to give everybody a second if they wanted to write down either of your emails.
Okay. I'll stop sharing here then if everybody's
Sure.
good.
Let's see. Yes. So if you go onto the Last Green Valley's website, hopefully everybody can see this okay.
Yep.
Under Join Us, or I'm sorry, Learn and Protect, you will see Land Use and Conservation. And this is where all the resources will be. I will give a disclaimer. We are going to be going through a website transfer. So if in July you open this up and it looks very different, the resources will still be there and it is still us. But again, you can see right here, you can email my lovely coworker Cassidy to sign up for the upcoming seminars. And again, if anybody has questions, feel free to put them in the chat or else we're
Carly,
all set.
keep scrolling, Carly.
Keep
Just to show.
scrolling.
Yeah, we've tried, I know there was another publication that was mentioned in the chat. It is one of the things that is listed on this page under Connecticut Land
I
Conservation
did open this
Council.
up right
Yeah,
here. Yep.
protecting the land you love. So we have a number of the documents
Yeah,
that are
that's right
important for
here.
landowners linked here.
And that was sent in
And
the
we're going to
chat. Yep.
continue to build. We also have links to all of the land trusts and other co-sponsors on this page. And we're going to continue to build this out. The next two sessions are going to be much more kind of nuts and bolts with a lot more agency acronyms and more technical information. And so we're going to be building this out with as many fact sheets and other links to all the programs that we talk about over the next 2 months.
Definitely. Thank you, Lois.
Right.
I'd just like to say thank you to the Last Green Valley for all you do, including this. I mean, we would not be where we are if we hadn't gotten that grant, and doing this is going to make such a huge difference, I'm sure. I just love that Last Green Valley.
And even more
Love to
important
hear
than the
it.
grants was the information that we
Yes.
see. Bill Reed was a great resource for us. Sorry he's retired now, but just steered us in the right direction. Steered us to the right forester that would work with us. It was great help. So don't be scared to do it because there's a lot of people out there that will
Mhm.
help you and help a lot.
Yeah.
Right. Well, thank you all so much for coming. Appreciate it.
All
Great
right.
talking,
I can
everybody.
tell Lois is saying goodbye, but she has her mute on, so I will say thank you. Have a
Thank you
great
very
night,
much.
everybody.
you,
This will
everyone.
be
Bye.
for
Thank you.
available
Thank
to
you
watch
all.
See you
after.
next
All
month.
right.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay.
Bye.
Bye.
Thanks, everyone.
Bye,
Bye.
everybody.